The wind changed the day the Yendes came home. Not the kind of change you hear on the news. No storm warning, no sirens, just a subtle shift over St. Croix. The sea breathed a little deeper. The palm trees leaned a little closer to the old yellow house on the hill. And in the back garden, Ameka Yende felt it in her bones. She stood between her rows of seasonings and flowers, apron tied over her house dress, toes curling into the damp soil. Morning light slid over her shoulder, catching the silver in her locks as she pressed one hand to the earth. She smiled softly. "Day coming, Winston." From the open kitchen window, a pot clanged and a man answered with a half grumble, half laugh. "Woman, you've been saying that all week." Winston Yende stepped into the doorway, wiping his hands on a towel. "You sure it's not just the breeze talking to you again?" She turned to look at him. Broad-shouldered, still at 76, belly soft but arms strong, a face marked with both worry and joy. His hands, big and scarred, still carried the memory of wrenches and greasy engines, even though he hadn't worked a full mechanic's shift in years. "It's not the breeze," Ameka said, narrowing her eyes playfully. "It's the roots. The roots know when the branches are coming home." Winston shook his head, smiling as he walked out to join her, the screen door creaking behind him. "Roots, breeze, ancestors, all your friends," he said. "Long as they help clean this house before everybody reaches." She swatted at his arm, laughing. "House done clean is the people I worried about." For a moment, they just stood there together in the garden, the smell of thyme, basil, and damp dirt cocooning them in something warm and familiar. "7 children," Winston said quietly, "and all of them big now, scattered like lug nuts rolling off the workbench." He paused, then snorted. "Hard to believe they all coming back just so, for one Thanksgiving." Ameka heard what he didn't say. They weren't really a Thanksgiving family. No big turkey traditions, no matching pajamas, no perfect movie scene table growing up. Back then, there were shift schedules, late-night repair calls, kids' homework, and whatever meal could stretch the farthest. But this year it was different. This was the only weekend where flights, contracts, games, and speaking engagements somehow lined up. It felt less like planning and more like a summons. "It isn't the turkey that brings them," Ameka murmured. "Is the time. Time call you home whether you're ready or not." She wiped her hands on her apron and looked up at the house. Fresh paint, new shutters, the porch swept twice already. "You're nervous?" Winston asked. "But why?" She didn't reply. He just gave her a look. 7 grown children, grandchildren who does Google everything you say to see if you're right. 1 NBA star, one of New York's bestsellers, wellness companies, golf pros, an artist, a truck boss. He shook his head. "Whole world in this one little house again. You know how long we ain't seen that?" Ameka's smile dimmed just a little. "Too long," she said softly. "Long enough for people to build distance and call it busy." Winston grunted in agreement. "Long enough," he added, "for old argument to grow quiet, but not die." The words hung between them like clothes on a line. Then from down the hill, a car horn blared twice. Sharp, familiar, impatient. Ameka's head snapped up. Winston's eyes narrowed. "Who honks like that?" he muttered. "That is a New York horn, boy. It's your big author daughter." Sure enough, a sleek black SUV turned into the gravel drive, tires crunching over stones. The windows were tinted, the paint shining like it had somewhere better to be. Ameka wiped her hands again, though they were already clean. "Here we go," she whispered. "First branch reach." The SUV door opened with a soft thunk. Out stepped Janae. She didn't look like the little girl who used to run barefoot through the yard with a notebook under her arm. She stepped out like a woman used to stages. Posture straight, clothes sharp, wide-leg trousers, a flowing blouse, shades on even though the sun was still gentle. Her phone was in her hand as usual. I hear you," she said into her headset, walking around to the back of the vehicle. "We'll push the tour date, but don't cancel. Just move it. I'll send final confirmation after the weekend. Yes, I'm with family. No, I'm not running a workshop for them." She rolled her eyes. "All right, later." She clicked off, took a breath, and took off her sunglasses. The island air hit her first, warm, salty, thick with sunlight and some seasoning cooking already. Then she saw them, her parents standing in the garden like 2 centuries of her childhood. "Hi, Ma." Her voice went smaller without her permission. "Hi, Daddy." Ameka's heart did something that felt like a dance and a bruise at the same time. "Look at you, eh?" she said, walking closer, eyes shining. "New York bestseller, and still don't know how to call she-mother when the plane land." Janae laughed, guilty. "I texted you, Ma." Text is not call, but Ameka pulled her into a hug anyway, arms wrapping all the way around, holding on like the girl might disappear if she let go too soon. For a few seconds, Janae let herself sink in, into the smell of her mother's skin, the coconut oil, the faint scent of incense from the house. She hadn't realized how tightly she'd been holding herself until her shoulders dropped. Then Winston's voice broke in. "So you too big to hug your father now, or what?" She turned, grinning. "Hey, old man." He opened his arms and she stepped into them. His chest was still solid. The hug was quick, but it landed. "You get smaller," he said, pulling back, squinting at her. "You get shorter," she shot back. He laughed, the sound rusty but warm. "Big-time writer with a big mouth still, I see." They all laughed, and for a moment it felt easy. Then from the driveway, another engine cut off. A door slammed shut with confidence. "Oh boy," Winston muttered. "Here come trouble." EJ didn't walk. He marched. Joggers, fitted tee, duffel over one shoulder, water bottle in hand like he was reporting for training camp instead of Thanksgiving. He moved with that drill sergeant tempo, back straight, eyes already scanning the house, the yard, checking everything like he was assessing energy. "Nobody stretching? Nobody hydrating?" he called out, shaking his head. "We're getting old, man. Morning, family." "Morning, Sarge," Janae said, smirking. EJ grinned and pulled her into a one-armed hug. "Bestseller," he said. "You ain't retired yet? Or you still making people cry in airports with your books?" "Somebody has to," she replied. He moved to their mother next, hugging her and bending down to kiss her forehead. "Queen Ameka, you come here to make people do push-ups or you come here to eat?" She asked. "Both," he said. "Can't have one without the other." He clapped Winston on the shoulder. "Boss mechanic, you good?" "Better now that I know you bring your tools to fix my back," Winston replied. "Getting up from that chair is a full-time job now." EJ laughed. "I got you. We doing mobility later. All of you line up." "Look at him," Ameka said under her breath to Janae. "From drill sergeant to wellness guru, same mouth, just more water." They shared a quiet laugh. Underneath, though, there was a ripple, a sense of old roles sliding back onto their shoulders, like coats they thought they'd outgrown. Oldest, enforcer, peacemaker. Strange child, the funny one, the quiet one, the ghost in the corner. None of the others were there yet, but their shadows were. By midday, the house had shifted. Suitcases in the hallway, laughter spilling from the kitchen, voices overlapping, some English, some patois, some half-whispered, some louder than they needed to be. Michelle arrived next, paint on her hands and a rolled canvas under her arm, eyes already soaking in the colors of home. Kelly came after, cracking jokes about airport security and limping just slightly when she got tired. Mookie burst in like a storm of sunshine, volleyball bag in tow. Dancing his way through the doorway, Joshua slipped in quietly, wife at his side, hand gentle on hers. And last, as always, was Shlomo. His rental car was the least flashy of all of them. Dark, clean, practical. He parked neatly at the far edge of the yard, sat in the driver's seat a moment longer than necessary, then finally stepped out. He wore a simple polo and jeans, no chains, no flash, but everything about him spoke of success. The watch, the phone, the way he moved as if always accounting for time. "Winston," Ameka said softly from the veranda as she watched him close the car door. "Watch his eyes." "I'm watching," Winston replied. Shlomo opened the passenger door and reached a hand in. "Come, love." A slim brown hand reached back, fingers sliding into his. Out stepped Shania, his wife. Graceful, warm smile. eyes that had learned how to read a room before she stepped into it. She looked up at the Yende house and exhaled slowly. "This is where the legend starts, huh?" she said. "This is where the chaos starts," Shlomo replied, but there was a smile at the corner of his mouth. For a moment, he just stood there, looking at the house, the veranda, the open door his parents had never closed on him. Even on the days he'd stayed away on purpose, he didn't like big crowds, didn't like the noise, didn't like being read or misread. But this year, something had shifted inside him too. "Ready?" Shania asked. He swallowed, nodded once. "Yeah," he said. "This time, I'm ready." From the veranda, every sibling watched him walk up, some from the doorway, some pretending not to stare. Mookie whispered under his breath, "Introvert incoming," and got a light slap from Michelle. "Behave yourself," she hissed. Ameka stepped forward first. "Shlomo," she called, voice steady. "You take long enough." He looked up, and for half a second the mask slipped. "Traffic," he said. She snorted. "Traffic between your head and your heart is what you mean." The whole veranda laughed. Even he did, just a little. He climbed the steps, hugged his mother, then his father. "Old man," he murmured. "Truck boss?" Winston replied. "Still know how to change a tire, or you too rich now?" Shlomo smiled. "Hands remember," he said, holding up his palms. "Same like yours." Winston's eyes softened for just a moment. Mechanic recognizing mechanic. Calloused hands meeting in the quiet language of men who'd worked their way out of tight corners. Inside the house, voices rose. Footsteps overlapped. The air thick with seasoning, memories, and the heavy feeling of something important trying to happen. 7 children, 1 matriarch, 1 retired mechanic. Grandchildren scattered across the industries and continents. All under one roof again. Not for a funeral, not for a crisis. For something softer, more fragile. The chance to see who they had become. And if family still fit, Ameka stood in the middle of the living room and let the sound wash over her. Her children talking, arguing lightly, joking, calling each other by childhood nicknames they would never post online. "That's it," she whispered. Winston looked at her. "That's what?" "The wind," she said. "It changed. You feel it?" He paused, listening past the noise to something under it. The tension, the possibility, the old hurt stirring, the love that refused to die. "Yeah," he said slowly. "I feel it." She nodded and straightened her shoulders. "Good," she said. "'Cause by the time this Thanksgiving is done, every single one of them is going to feel it too." And somewhere deep in the old house, in the worn floorboards, in the walls that had heard every Yende argument and every Yende prayer, something settled. The reunion had begun. If the living room was where memories lived, the kitchen was where truth slipped out accidentally. By mid-afternoon, pots were already steaming, the counter was covered with cutting boards, and the fridge door had been opened so many times it sighed like it wanted to file a complaint. Ameka stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, perfectly in command like she'd never missed a beat. Steam curled around her face as she stirred the pot, humming an old hymn only her generation knew. Janae was slicing seasonings like she was auditioning for a cooking competition, while EJ wiped down surfaces that were already clean, because efficiency was his love language. No one announced it, but somehow the 3 of them had slipped into their usual triangle formation. Matriarch, oldest, sergeant. The daily bread trio reunited. Then Kelly limped in. The whole kitchen paused just long enough to make her roll her eyes. She grabbed a plantain off the counter, tossed it twice, and leaned against the fridge with a grin. "Well, well, well," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at the daily bread trio. Mama, meeting 1 and meeting 2, all 3 in the same physical room. Let me go call CNN." EJ didn't look up. "Really? That's what we're doing?" "Oh, yes," Kelly went on dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen, they have logged out of the group conference call and are now operating in real time, live and in person." She put her hand to her heart. "Truly, Thanksgiving miracles still exist." Janae pointed her knife at her. "First of all, nobody told you to be limping in here like your opening scene for Law & Order. Orthopedics unit." Kelly smirked, dragged her limp a little slower just to be messy, and dropped onto a bar stool. Don't be jealous, she said. I walk with personality. EJ finally turned, crossed his arms. You know your gait is compensating. That's not the original injury pattern. That's bad alignment. Your hip is overworking because the glute isn't firing properly. Kelly stared at him, unblinking. If you wanted to call me cute, you could have just said that. He ignored the comment, already in coach mode, eyes analyzing like she was a puzzle. Kelly, listen. That injury is fixable. You know that, right? If you ever decide you want to play again, you don't have to settle. Kelly dramatically tossed a plantain peel into the trash. Right, Sarge. Tell that to the 5 top doctors who scanned, poked, measured, stretched, MRI'd, X-rayed, and prayed over me. She fake whispered, they had real diplomas too. EJ didn't laugh. I'm serious, he said softly. You're not done unless you say you're done. Those words landed heavier than the plantain slices sizzling in oil. Kelly let out a breath she didn't mean to. Her eyes drifted, just for a second, to the golf bag leaning by the hallway. Then mask back on, she shrugged. Well, the good news is, she said, standing up and limping away with an overdramatic flourish, my modeling career is fully intact. She eased out of the room, but not before calling over her shoulder. And daily bread, don't burn my plantains. That will start a real family fight. The awkward silence that followed was not loud, just real. Janae resumed chopping more slowly. EJ stared after Kelly like he wanted to run after her and fix her entire life in 30 minutes. Ameka spoke first, voice calm but loaded. You can't fix everything, boy, EJ sighed. Yeah, but I can fix that. No, she said gently. You can help, but she has to want help. And wanting doesn't come from pain. It comes from readiness. Janae nodded quietly. I know what it feels like, she whispered, to be good at something, and terrified you'll never be that version of yourself again. She didn't realize until she said it that she was talking about more than sports. Ameka looked between the two of them, eyes soft, wise, seeing deeper than words. The body heals slowly, she said, but pride? She shook her head. That one heals on its own timing. No one responded. Only the pot answered, with a slow, bubbling simmer. Just like the family. Safta, can you make Johnny cake? Just as the kitchen settled into a quiet rhythm again, little footsteps pattered in from the hallway. Quick, light, excited footsteps belonging to the future of the Yende family. The doorframe filled with curious eyes and hopeful smiles. One of the great-grandchildren, hair in tiny twists, t-shirt slightly crooked from play, holding a stuffed toy under one arm like a passport. Safta, the small voice was pure sweetness and confidence. Before we leave, can you make Johnny cake and pâté? Please? We haven't tasted yours in so long. The entire kitchen turned. Janae's knife paused mid-slice. EJ looked up from the counter, eyebrows raised. And even the pot on the stove seemed to hold its breath, because only one person was allowed to make those, and everyone knew why. Ameka slowly wiped her hands on her apron, eyes softening as she crouched down to meet the child's face. You remember that? She asked gently. After all this time? The great-grandchild nodded with big, dramatic seriousness. It tastes different when you make it. Nobody else makes it like you, Safta. It's like magic frying. The adults tried not to laugh, but failed miserably. Janae leaned on the counter, shaking her head. Magic frying? That's going on a t-shirt. EJ put his hand over his heart. I feel personally disrespected as a man who seasons food. The great-grandchild continued, unfazed. And the pâté? You know how Mommy tried to make it last year? It tasted like it needed prayer. Everyone exploded. Even Ameka had to cover her mouth to hide her laugh. She gently tapped the child's nose. Listen, my love, pâté is not a recipe, you know. Is technique, is hand, is memory, is spirit. The child nodded with dramatic wisdom. That's what I said. Then came the million-dollar question. So, can you make some, please, real ones? The golden kind that puff up? Her eyes flicked to the adults. And can I help mix this time? not just watch? That hits something deep, because children don't ask for food, they ask for legacy. And legacy is always passed down through hands, not instructions. Ameka slowly stood, exhaled, and smiled as if she had already seen the future. Well then, she said, tying her apron a little tighter, if my great-grand want Johnny cake and pâté, we making it. Cheers erupted like a tiny celebration. The great-grandchild squealed, hopped once, and ran off yelling to the cousins like news just broke. Safta making pâté! Real pâté! The magic one! Voices echoed down the hallway. Even the kids knew what that meant. And when the echoes faded, Ameka whispered under her breath, with pride and purpose only grandmothers understand, tradition can't die while I still have flour. The kitchen, once ruled by 3 adults, now evolved into a multi-generational, partially vegetarian circus. No one planned it. No one called a meeting. But once one grandchild entered, they all migrated like birds who smelled seasoning. The air now smelled like cinnamon, nutmeg, and a hint of coconut oil from somebody's hair, because Caribbean kitchens were never just about food. They were about identity. Malka entered first, carrying a reusable tote bag like it held national treasure. Move, please! I need counter space for my sweet potato cake and butter cookies, she announced, already tying on her flower-colored apron like a contestant entering the finals of a televised baking showdown. EJ stepped out of her way like she was a paramedic. Don't worry, Malka, he said. Your station is secure. She nodded once, focused, serious, already pre-measuring spices like she was calculating destiny. Meanwhile, Sigali leaned against the far wall, not a single speck of flour touching her clothes, hair, or freshly glossed lips. Whew, this kitchen is too warm, she said, fanning herself dramatically. I will support from the observation deck. Translation, Kelly muttered, walking by. She still don't like to cook. Everyone chuckled because truth didn't need defense. Sigalit adjusted her necklace. I cook, just not in hot rooms, with steam and fire. Joshua, leaning next to her with folded arms, nodded like it made perfect sense. He looked like a man who had chosen peace in every argument since 2014. Suddenly, Naomi waddled in, beautiful, glowing, tired, and armed with pregnancy authority. She looked around like a captain evaluating a shipwreck. Why is everything on high heat? She demanded. This is not a race. Vegetables still have feelings, you know. The room paused long enough for amusement to sprout. It's not all on high heat, someone mumbled. She ignored it, pointing to every stove burner like she was inspecting rented equipment. Steam, simmer, medium, low. These settings exist for a reason. Enter Vardit, rolling her eyes like she paid rent in sarcasm. Girl, relax. I know how to cook string beans the way my mother taught me. And just like that, it was on. Naomi narrowed her eyes. Oh, really? Overcooked, squeaky, rubber string beans is not culture. It's abuse. Vardit gasped like she'd just been slapped with kale. You're pregnant and cranky. Go waddle somewhere before I season you. The whole kitchen erupted. From the back corner, Mookie and Inslee leaned against the countertop like 2 NBA players, courtside at warm-ups. They did not intervene. They did not coach. They did not referee. They laughed, hard. Mookie slapped the counter. Boy, this is better than Netflix. Inslee wiped a tear. And nobody even touched the casserole yet. Meanwhile, Ameka was at the table, quietly writing a tiny list in her soft-covered notebook. At the bottom, she finally added, maybe small batch Johnny cake and pâté. Only if spirit agree. She closed the notebook, kissed her teeth lightly, and whispered with a smirk, never know when legacy go need a lil snack. The kitchen noise slowly faded into the background as the house settled into its evening rhythm. Laughter in one room, music drifting from another, plates clinking, random arguments over seasoning or who moved what, and children running like joy had no curfew. But the porch was different. It was where noise paused, where truth breathed, and where nobody had to pretend. The porch light flicked on automatically, casting a warm glow that pooled across the wooden floorboards, the same ones that had held bare, dusty little feet years before, when life wasn't polished, branded, or compared. Janae stepped outside first. No phone, no planner, no spotlight, just quiet. She leaned against the railing, letting the warm island air settle against her skin. Not New York air, not hotel air, not airplane air. Home air. A moment later, Kelly limped out, not dramatically this time, but honestly, like her body was tired of lying about being fine. She pulled out a porch chair, eased herself into it, and exhaled the kind of sigh you only release near roots. "You okay?" Janae asked quietly. Kelly shrugged. "Depends what part you asking about." They shared a smile, not a happy one, but a real one. For a few seconds, they simply listened to the night. Frogs, crickets, a faint calypso rhythm from someone's speaker across the hill, and the undercover softness of palm trees moving like whispered prayers. Then Kelly spoke again, her voice warmed by memory instead of pain. "You remember when Mommy used to actually schedule family meetings?" she asked. "Like she was running a whole government agency?" Janae burst into laughter immediately, the sound echoing off the yard. "Oh my God, yes," she would literally say, "family meeting, Tuesday 7 p.m., living room, don't be late." And none of us ever knew what we were walking into. Kelly nodded vigorously. And we all had to sit in a perfect circle, like a support group nobody volunteered to attend, just side-eyeing each other, waiting to see who looked guilty. Janae mimicked their old posture, hands folded, eyes lowered, pretending innocence. And she always started talking soft, slow, like she was about to announce history. Kelly dropped into the exact imitation. "Well, I just want to say something, and I want Alia to listen without interrupting, because I don't like confusion." They both cracked up, heads tilted back. And as soon as she revealed the topic, Janae continued, instead of solving it, the whole room would explode like pepper in hot oil. Kelly threw both hands up. All hell would break loose, voices raising, crying, defending, storming out. And Joshua? Lord, he was always the center of it. Janae nearly fell over laughing. He was always breaking something to build something else. Little island engineer with no supervision. Kelly nodded, tears in her eyes. And when Mommy got fed up, she would yell, "This is why I call the meeting," as if that was the magic sentence to restore peace. They laughed until they couldn't breathe. Then Kelly delivered the final punchline. And guess what? 2 weeks later, same meeting again, because nothing got solved. Silence followed, but not the empty kind, the understanding kind. Janae's voice shifted, softer now. "We hated those meetings so much, but maybe she was trying to teach us how to talk before life forced us to." Kelly nodded, eyes glistening just slightly. "Yeah, and now we adults with even bigger things to say and no real blueprint for how to say them." They let the truth sit, no rush, no apology. Then the porch door opened gently. Shlomo stepped out, not interrupting, just entering. Like someone joining an existing beat in a song. He took the seat furthest to the right, hands clasped loosely, eyes reflecting porch light and something deeper. He listened first, his best skill, then spoke carefully. "You know, silence isn't always strength," he said quietly. "Sometimes it's just not knowing where you belong in conversations that matter." Both women turned toward him, not surprised he understood, but surprised he admitted it. Shlomo continued, "I watch all of you handle people. Cameras, crowds, pressure. You do it like breathing. Me, I built a life where nobody needed to knock on my door." He paused, jaw tightening just slightly. And somewhere along the line, privacy started to feel like loneliness. No one rushed to comfort him. This family had learned that real statements needed space. Then Kelly asked, gently this time, "What do you want, Shlomo?" He inhaled, then released something he'd held for years. "I want a family. A loud one. Kids running everywhere. Games, noise, chaos. A full house. I didn't know if someone like me was allowed to want that." The night breeze filled the space they didn't know how to answer. Inside, laughter burst again. Big, proud, unstoppable. Outside, three siblings sat side by side in the only silence that ever mattered. The silence where someone finally told the truth. By the time everyone made it to the dining room, the house felt different. The night outside was warm and loud with crickets. But inside, the air held its breath. The long wooden table waited in the center of the room. The same table that once held spelling books, hot combs, birthday cakes, report cards, and plates of food that had stretched further than the money that bought them. Now it held something else. Legacy. Ameka walked in last, not by accident. She moved slowly, but there was nothing weak in her pace. When she took her seat at the head of the table, it wasn't a choice, it was gravity. Winston sat at the other end like the final page of a book, the place you always end up, whether you rush or not. In between them, the table had become a map of their lives. String beans, bright and glossy, potato stuffing, soft and rich, pickled beets that glowed like little jewels, artichokes with bean curds, baked macaroni and cheese bubbling at the edges, barbecue twist with a dark, sticky glaze, stewed tofu, tender and deep with flavor, greens that smelled like Sunday, coleslaw and fresh salad, and the Johnny cakes, golden, puffed, sitting in the middle of it all like they had seniority. Desserts waited off to the side like a second act. Apple pie, butter cookies, rum cake, and Malka's sweet potato cake front and center like it already knew it was everyone's favorite. For a moment, nobody sat. They just looked at the food, at the table, at each other. Then the front door opened. He didn't rush. He never did. Uncle Fish stepped in like he owned the scene. Pressed shirt, fresh haircut, clean cologne that wrapped the doorway before he did. In his hand, covered in foil and a kitchen towel like it was contraband, he carried the missing piece, Vienna cake. "Evening, family," he said, lips curling into that easy, dangerous smile. "I bring the ting all of you does fight over every year." The room broke open with laughter, relief, and just a little bit of noise that sounded suspiciously like joy. Winston shook his head. "You really believe you are the savior, huh?" "A good cake does fix tings," Uncle Fish said, sliding into a chair like the night had been waiting on him. "Some of you look like you need 2 slices." The laughter lingered, then softened into something quieter, because the table was full, but not complete. "Boy, Auntie Nadine would have loved this," Vardit said suddenly, her voice dipping low, almost cracking on love. There it was, the missing piece. The name tasted like hairspray, hair grease, perfume, and jokes. The beautician who did everybody's hair whether they asked or not. The one who dyed her hair red on Monday, blonde on Thursday, and purple just because the moon felt right. The one who could make you laugh while you cried and made sure nobody stayed ugly for too long, inside or out. The room didn't go fully silent, but the sound changed. Even the spoon seemed to stir more softly. EJ's gaze slid across the table. He looked at Michelle and let a slight smirk creep in. "Probably where you get your style from," he said. Michelle reached up and touched one of her big, colorful earrings, her nose piercing, catching the light. "If I got even one sprinkle of her spirit," she replied, "I blessed." Nobody joked after that, not for a few beats. Some names brought too much with them. Then Ameka lifted her hand. She didn't have to raise it high. She just tilted her fingers, and the whole table instinctively quieted. 7 children, lots of grandchildren and great-grands. Success in every direction. And still, when she moved, they listened. "Phones down," she said simply. "When we eat, we present." Screens lowered like guilty eyes. No argument, no delay. People started sitting, chairs scraped softly, plates filled, voices returned in pieces. "I don't know who's season what," Mookie said, already reaching, "but if my taste buds fall in love tonight, I'm moving back in." Naomi waved a spoon from the other side of the table, one hand on her lower back, pregnancy sitting heavy but proud. "Not everything needs high heat," she said. "These vegetables deserve respect." Inslee pointed at her with his fork. "Let me eat in peace before she turns this into a cooking documentary. I'm starving." The laughter came easily this time. Forks scraped plates. Food finally touched mouths. The house, for a moment, made a new sound, one they hadn't heard in years. Everybody eating together. Then just as it began to feel safe, Ameka reached for her glass. She didn't slam it, didn't clink it hard, just tapped the rim with her nail once it rang. The sound pulled every conversation into a soft halt. "Tell me," she said, eyes traveling slowly around the table, "what are you grateful for this year?" And just like that, the air got heavier. Gratitude sounds simple until you have to say it out loud, in front of people who know what you've survived. Inslee went first, shoulders squaring like he was at a post-game interview. "I'm grateful for opportunities," he said, "and that my knees are still working." A few people snorted. That was ball player honesty. "I'm grateful for new beginnings," Naomi added, hand resting over her belly. The way she said it made the room glance at her twice. Some heard the baby, some heard more. "I'm grateful for alignment," Sigali said, "for not forcing what's not for me." Her tone was light, but the weight under that sentence sat in people's chests. Nobody asked who or what she meant. Michelle inhaled quietly. "I'm grateful for peace. Not fake peace. Real peace." Kelly shifted her foot under the table, pain flickering across her face for just a second before she spoke. "I'm grateful I can still walk," she said. "And I know my story is not done, even if I don't know the next chapter yet." EJ leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and firm. "I'm grateful for discipline," he said, "and for learning that caring for people doesn't always look gentle." Everybody knew that was true about him. Some of them had scars to prove it. But for the first time, it sounded like he saw it too. Then it was Janae's turn. She didn't rush. She stared at her plate for a moment, like the right words might be hiding somewhere between the greens and potato stuffing. "I'm grateful," she finally said, "that success didn't take my soul, because it tried, more than once." The room held that line like it had edges. Mookie lifted his glass slightly. "I'm grateful for real joy," he said. "Not the kind you post, the kind you feel." Josh tapped his fingers on the table, thinking, "I'm grateful for purpose," when he said, "The kind you build with your hands, not the kind you chase because everybody else is doing it." Then came Shlomo. For a second, he thought about giving an easy answer. Money, business, blessings, the usual script. But something about being here, at this table, with these people and this history, made lying feel like choking. "I'm grateful I came home," he said slowly, eyes dropping for a moment. "And that I finally understand, money is not the same thing as family." Something shifted, not loud, but deep. Winston leaned back, letting the silence stretch just to the edge of uncomfortable, before he cut it with a grin. "Well," he said, "I'm grateful all of you are eating without asking if it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, guilt-free, low-carb, soy-free, or emotionally free." They exploded laughing, clapping, somebody almost spitting out juice. The tension snapped like a rubber band. For a brief, shining moment, they felt like kids again, sitting around a table where the only question that mattered was who was getting seconds. But peace never stayed long without a test. Vardit took another bite, chewed slowly, lifted her eyes, and dropped a sentence in the middle of the table like a stone in water. "So we're not going to talk about how long it took for this to happen," she said, "or we're just pretending everybody was too busy for years." The laughter glitched and cut off. It was subtle, but everyone felt it. Kelly gave her a look. "Girl, don't rush the plot. We just pressed play." Josh huffed a quiet laugh. "If we really start that conversation, we're going to need snacks and a licensed therapist." EJ's jaw tightened. "Some of us called," he said. "Some of us reached out. Some of us disappeared and then acted like the phone plan got canceled." Sigalit set her napkin down, straightening her posture. "And some of us wrote paragraph texts like court statements," she said calmly. "Not everybody likes being cross-examined in the family group chat." Mookie couldn't help it. He started laughing. "Leave it alone. We got a New York best-selling author at the table. Of course, the texts come with a preface, a plot, and acknowledgments." The table laughed, but the crack stayed. You could hear it in the quiet that followed. A hairline fracture no one wanted to touch yet. Uncle Fish tapped his fork like a gavel. "Talk if you want," he said. "Just remember, free therapy lasts 1 hour. After that, all of you are getting billed." They laughed again, softer, grateful for the way his humor broke up the heat. Then little by little the energy shifted. Plates emptied, glasses lowered, the loudness softened into tired breaths and full stomachs. The children started drifting toward other rooms. The older ones started leaning back in their chairs. And that's when it happened, the part nobody saw coming. Ameka folded her napkin. Once, twice, slow, deliberate, not nervous, not fidgeting, just thinking. When she looked down at that small square of fabric in her hands, it felt like she was looking through it, past it, into something only she could see. "Tonight feel different," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through everything. Conversations died. Chairs stopped creaking. Even the fridge hum sounded too loud. "Different how?" Winston asked, eyes narrowing. Ameka didn't look at him. She looked at the table, at all of them. "Like time speeding up," she whispered. "Like, we're running out of something we don't know we're losing yet." No one touched their food. Inslee leaned forward, his voice barely more than a breath. "Safta, what do you mean?" Her eyes met his. Her NBA grandson, tall and strong, who still looked 5 years old when he was scared. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I feel it." And that was worse than an answer. On the other side of the table, Shlomo's heart thudded in his chest. He glanced at his wife, and for once didn't turn away. He leaned in, lips barely moving. "Should we tell them now?" he asked softly. "Or later?" Shania's fingers slid under the table and wrapped around his hand. The squeeze she gave him wasn't gentle. "Not yet," she whispered. "If you drop that tonight, you can't pick it back up." Only one person saw their hands move. Kelly. Pain in her leg, fork in her hand, eyes sharp as ever. She didn't say a word. She just watched. The night wrapped itself tighter around the house. The table that once felt full now felt like a stage right before the second act. When the lights dim and everyone knows something else is coming. They just don't know what it is. And this time, nobody was walking away untouched. The house had gone quiet in pieces. First, the kids' voices faded into distant giggles. Then even that dissolved into doors closing, a cartoon humming somewhere, a toilet flushing, somebody whispering "good night" in passing. The kind of quiet that doesn't come all at once. It settles slowly, like dust after a storm. Down the hallway, a soft light glowed from one of the guest rooms. Inside, Shlomo sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, dress shirt untucked, tie undone, and hanging loose around his neck. He looked like a man who had been successful all day and ran out of strength the minute night arrived. Shania stood by the dresser, slowly taking off her earrings and placing them in a small dish. She watched him in the mirror for a moment before turning around. "You're quiet," she said gently. He let out a breath that sounded heavier than the room. "I've been quiet for years," he answered. "Tonight, just make it louder." She came closer, but not all the way, stopping a few steps from him, giving him space and closeness at the same time. "What's moving around in your head?" she asked. "Say it plain." He rubbed his palms together, searching for words that didn't wound him on the way out. 45, he muttered. That number never used to bother me, but tonight it feels like a deadline. Shania frowned. A deadline for what? He looked up at her slowly, eyes tired in a way money couldn't fix. "For everything," he said. "For this business. For my body. For us. For the kind of life we say we wanted, but keep postponing, like is a vacation, not a family." Her face softened, but her shoulders tensed. "Don't do that," she whispered. "Don't talk like time is already gone. We're still here." He shook his head. "Babe, I went to the clinic," he said quietly. "You know that. You were there. You heard the man. Numbers are low for your age. Probability reduced." He didn't say impossible, but he said it with his eyes. Shania closed her own for a moment, like the memory still stung. "I remember," she said. He swallowed, jaw flexing. "I spent my whole life building trucks, routes, contracts," he went on. "Everybody calling me boss like that is supposed to mean something when the lights are off. But I sit at that table tonight, and all I could think—" His voice thinned, almost breaking. All I could think about is I might never have a little voice calling me daddy. The word barely made it out of his mouth. In the hallway just outside their door, a floorboard creaked. Malka froze. She hadn't meant to stop. She was passing by on her way to the bathroom, barefoot, cup in hand. But that word, daddy, in that tone from him, it pinned her in place. She glanced at the half-open door, the light spilling onto the floor, the weight in his voice. Inside, Shania stepped closer, finally closing the gap between them. She knelt in front of him, taking his hands into hers. "Listen to me," she said softly. "Low doesn't mean none. The doctor said it himself. It means it might take time. It might take help. It might take different paths to the same dream." Shlomo looked at their joined hands as if they belonged to someone braver. "And if time runs out," he asked, "what then? I'm supposed to smile and pretend building companies feel the same as building a child?" His voice dropped lower. "I'm tired of everybody calling me successful," he said. "I feel like a fraud. What's the point of all this money if the house stay quiet when we gone?" In the hallway, Malka's breath hitched. She heard clinic. She heard numbers low. She heard time run out. But her mind ran in a different direction entirely. Is he sick? Did the doctor say something worse? Why nobody telling us? She didn't move. Footsteps approached softly from behind her. Kelly rounded the corner, saw her knees frozen near the door, and almost spoke, until she caught the look on her face. "What happened?" Kelly mouthed. Barely a sound, Malka pointed toward the open crack of the door, eyes wide. Kelly came closer, her limp quieter on bare floor, and leaned just enough to hear voices inside. Shania's tone deepened. "You are not a fraud," she said. "You are a good man, a good husband. What you want doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." "I want to be a father," he said. "At 45. Who does that? Who starts now?" "Men start at 45 every day," Shania replied. "Some start at 60. You know the difference? They are not scared to admit they want it." "But what if I can't give it to you?" he asked, words cracking. "What if all my life, all this, and I still fail at the one thing that matters to me now?" The silence that followed punched harder than the words. Just then, Vardit turned the corner, hair wrapped, hoodie on, moving half asleep, until she saw them. She stopped. "What y'all doing?" she whispered. Kelly didn't answer. She just lifted a finger to her lips, then tilted her chin toward the door. Now all three of them stood there, 2 generations of Yende women, listening to a man inside a softly lit room fight with something none of them could fix. They heard, "I don't want to die with my money-hugging strangers." They heard, "What if I walk away from the company and it all falls apart?" They heard, "I don't know how to tell them I want to start over, that I want a smaller life, with a baby in it." They did not hear the doctor's exact words. They did not hear the test results clearly. They did not hear the whole story, just enough to know that under all that success, Shlomo was breaking. Inside the room, Shania squeezed his hands tighter. "If you want to step back, we step back together," she said. "If you want to try again, we will. If you want to adopt, we adopt. Whatever you're scared to say out loud, I can hold it with you. But don't decide you are a disappointment before God finishes writing." He let out a shaky breath, eyes shining. "I'm scared I waited too long," he whispered. "You didn't," she said. "You just didn't know what you wanted until now." He dropped his forehead to hers, both of them breathing in the same question. In the hallway, Malka looked at Kelly. Kelly looked at Vardit. 3 different faces, one rising fear. None of them spoke as they walked away. They just stole glances at each other. Wide eyes, tight mouths, racing minds. A secret had been heard, but not understood. And Sunday was coming. Sooner than any of them were ready for. And while the house slept like nothing had changed, 3 minds replayed the same question in silence. What if Shlomo is dying, and nobody told us? A rooster from 2 houses down started crowing like he was trying to win a contest, waking people who didn't even live on that street. Cupboards opened softly, and in the kitchen, Ameka moved with quiet focus. She placed lemongrass and basil into her pretty glass teapot with gold trim. The one that came out only for company or for energy that needed calming. As the scent filled the house, doors opened one by one. Malka came down first, dragging her blanket like she wasn't done with the night. Vardit followed, bonnet tilted, mouth half open in a yawn. Kelly came last, easing herself down the steps, her ankle behaving as if it had signed its own contract. "Grand rising," Ameka said calmly. "Morning," they replied, but not one voice matched another. Janae entered next, notebook in hand, pausing at the table. "Lord, everybody's face looks like they want to clock out before the shift even starts," she said, sitting. No one denied it. EJ came in humming, grabbed a seat, and poured tea like he trusted whatever Ameka brewed could fix anything. Inslee slid in, bouncing a basketball softly. Thump, 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 like he literally breathed in rhythm. Nobody was talking. Nobody was eating. Nobody even knew how to start. Then out of nowhere, Janae broke the silence. "Everybody acting like this tea has secrets in it." Eyes shifted, or not fast, just enough to say, "Mind your business, but you're not wrong." Before a laugh or reply could land, a phone rang on the counter. Everyone paused. Janae asked, "Whose phone is ringing?" No one answered, so Inslee walked over, checked the screen, and said casually, "It's say Dr. Frederick." Before confusion had time to settle, Shlomo, entering from the hallway, replied, "Oh, that's mine. Hand it here." His tone was normal, like it could have been a dentist, an accountant, or an appointment reminder. But across the table, 3 hearts dropped just enough to feel it. Malka, Vardit, Kelly. Their eyes met, a quick, quiet, shared. This ain't nothing, but it might be something. Meanwhile, Josh was in the back room arguing with a YouTube golf coach like he was getting paid to correct form. Naomi was still upstairs, sitting on the bed, rubbing her belly and breathing through another slow morning. Winston walked into the kitchen halfway, sensed the tone, mumbled, "Let me stay out this," and backed up like he was reversing a truck. The great-grands were still knocked out, sleeping like rent wasn't real. Back at the table, nobody talked about the call. That's when Sigalit entered. Silk robe, pretty slippers, lip gloss popping, smiling like someone's favorite song was still stuck in her head. "Grand rising royalties," she sang, sitting like she brought sunshine with her. The table stared, not jealous, just confused that somebody found joy this early. Her phone buzzed. She looked at it. Her smile got bigger. Janae, eyes still on her tea, slid in the question, smooth as lotion. "So, who got your nose wide open so early in the morning?" Sigalit grinned, full teeth. "Who told you it opened this morning? It has been open." A couple of people choked on tea they weren't even drinking. Kelly snapped first. "Just make sure your nose doesn't carry you somewhere your money can't bring you back from." Sigalit didn't flinch. She sipped her coffee slowly and answered, "Sweetheart, I don't chase life. Life sent a driver for me." A silence dropped so thick you could spread it on toast. And that's when Ameka, without turning her head, whispered just loud enough for only the table to hear, Something shifting in this house." Nobody asked her what she meant. Nobody argued. Nobody laughed. Because deep down, they all felt it too. By late morning, the house sounded normal again. Drawers closing, plates clinking, kids running somewhere, a TV talking to itself. But under it all, everybody felt something brewing. Josh stepped outside first, scrolling on his phone, leaning on the porch rail as if fresh air were his escape. EJ followed with the basketball tucked under his arm, bouncing it like his hands needed movement. They didn't announce anything, but somehow they both ended up in the driveway, facing that slanted, old but faithful hoop. Just as the first dribble hit the concrete, Mookie and Inslee stepped out with paper plates of leftovers. "I run it." Inslee grinned. "I got Josh by 5, Mookie yelled. EJ smirked. "Y'all betting like y'all forgot who I am." Josh rolled his eyes. "Mookie, tell the gym instructor to chill." Mookie laughed loudly, choking slightly on his food. "Boy, hush. Play ball. We're bored." The game started fun, fast, and light. Mookie and Inslee kept the commentary going hard. "Bucket alert. Oh, cook him." EJ, you're moving stiff like your joints need Bengay. Josh, that shot form looks borrowed. Boy, both of you are old, but this is entertaining. EJ scored. Josh scored right back. Mookie clapped. Inslee whistled. Then after a tight crossover and body bump, Josh scored again, pointed at EJ and said, "That's 3. Mark it." EJ forced a laugh, but his jaw tightened. Mookie didn't notice. Yet. Inslee didn't notice. Yet. Another drive. More contact. Less laughing. EJ scored hard, staring Josh down. Inslee paused mid-chew. Mookie lowered his plate. They looked at each other. "They playing serious now," Inslee whispered. Mookie shrugged. "Nah, maybe? Next play, Josh shoulder-checked EJ with full-grown man pressure. EJ shoved back, not playful. The ball stopped bouncing. Trash talk had teeth now. "You only talk when people are watching," Josh said. EJ stepped closer. "And you only show up when everything has already been handled." Mookie put his food down slowly. Inslee stopped talking altogether. Nobody laughed anymore. One more possession, both breathing heavy for reasons that weren't physical. Then EJ hit the final line, low and sharp enough to bruise pride. "You're jealous of me, and everyone can see it, except you." The air did not move, Mookie whispered. Y'all, good?" Josh didn't blink. EJ didn't either. Nobody on earth could referee that. The sun was higher now, hot enough to make the driveway shimmer. EJ and Josh faced each other with the basketball between them. Shoulders squared, breathing hard, pride refusing to blink. Neither said game point. They didn't have to. EJ dribbled low, fast. Josh blocked with force. Too much force for a friendly game. EJ shoved back with his shoulder. Josh grabbed his arm. The ball rolled away. They didn't go for it. They went for each other. Chest to chest, eyes locked. History twitching in their jaws. "You can't stand when I win," EJ said, voice shaking with heat. "You can't stand when you don't get attention," Josh shot back. "Boy, please, you ain't even show up for half the family stuff growing up," Josh snapped. Josh leaned in. "And you think you're the example because you talk loudly? Nobody asked you to be the drill sergeant of the family." EJ's nostrils flared. "That's because if I don't lead, nobody does." Josh stepped back, not scared, disgusted. "You right. You're not leading. You're controlling." The silence that followed wasn't calm. It was the kind that wants to break something. Before it did, a voice cut through the heat. "Stop!" Malka, Vardit, Kelly. All 3 were on the porch, eyes wide. Not because of the fight, but because they came outside with another mission entirely. "We need to talk to you," Malka said, pointing at Shlomo, who stepped out behind Winston, confused. "To me?" he asked. "Yes," Vardit said firmly. "In private." "No," Kelly corrected. "Now." One by one, the rest of the family drifted toward them. Ameka, Winston, Naomi, Inslee, Michelle, Janae, Sigalit, and the kids who sensed something was happening. Shlomo's voice trembled slightly. "What's going on?" Malka swallowed. "We overheard you last night." Shock rippled through the group. "Overheard what?" Janae demanded. Then Vardit took a slow breath, eyes locked on Shlomo. "And this morning, your phone rang from a doctor, so we need you to tell us the truth." A beat, another beat. "Are you dying?" The yard inhaled. Even the wind held still. Shlomo's body froze. Shania grabbed his hand. EJ stopped breathing. Josh stepped back. Ameka's mouth parted like she forgot how to finish a prayer. "What?" Multiple voices burst at once. "Who said somebody was dying? What doctor? Where y'all got that from?" Shlomo lifted his hand, visibly shaking. "Stop. Let me talk." The yard went quiet enough to hear someone's heartbeat echoing in their ears. Shania wiped her face first. "We're not hiding because he's dying," she whispered. "We're hiding because we're ashamed." The confusion in the yard shifted. Fear melted into something even heavier. Shlomo finally exhaled, voice cracking. "I am not dying, but I am struggling." Nobody spoke. He looked at his hands as if the truth were printed on his palms. "I went to the doctor because We've been trying to have a baby, and my numbers are low. Josh sank into a chair as if his body had forgotten how to stand. EJ's face dropped, pride dissolving without permission. Naomi covered her mouth. Winston stared at the ground like he'd been punched in the chest with memories no one else had lived. Janae stepped forward slowly, voice gentle, no judgment. You don't have to go through that alone. That's not shame. That's family. Michelle exhaled hard. So, hold on. We're out here thinking funeral when it's fertility? Boy, y'all had this all wrong. Shlomo's head snapped up, tears finally breaking. You think it's easy for a man to admit he might not be able to make a child? I built companies, I built teams, I built an empire, and I don't even know if I can build a family of my own. You think that doesn't crush a man? His voice fractured into quiet. For a long moment, no one dared speak. Then Shania gently rubbed his back, tears sliding silently. We weren't hiding because we don't trust you. We were hiding because we didn't want pity, or people avoiding us, or watching us like we were fragile. The yard felt like it was holding its breath for the world. And then, one slow clap. Sigalit. Every head turned. She wasn't clapping to be disrespectful. She clapped because truth had finally entered the room, and she refused to leave without placing hers on the table too. Well, she said, standing straighter, adjusting her robe like armor. Since we're being honest today, everyone's stomach tightened. I'm in love with a man in Dubai, and he asked me to come live with him. Half the yard gasped. The other half froze with their mouths open. She didn't blink. And I'm thinking about going. Nobody moved. For a moment, it felt like all the oxygen had left the yard, and only shock was allowed to breathe. Sigalit stood there with perfect posture, chin slightly raised, eyes steady, the kind of calm that doesn't beg for approval and doesn't fear judgment. Her announcement floated in the silence like it had a heartbeat of its own. Finally, Michelle broke first, eyes wide. Dubai? As in, across the ocean, Dubai? Sigalit didn't blink. Yes, that Dubai. Naomi held her belly, shaking her head slowly. But what about the business? The brand? The retreats? Y'all just launch? We launched, Sigalit said, correcting her softly. But maybe what I want is different. Malka whispered, Since when do you know anybody in Dubai? For a while now, she answered calmly. And no, it wasn't no DM or no sugar daddy nonsense. He's real, he respects me, he sees me, he wants me, and he treats me like I matter even when nobody's watching. A few eyes flickered toward Vardit, quiet but burning inside. Winston stepped forward slightly, voice calm, wise, and weighted with experience. You have a right to want love, yes, but life is not only wanting, is what you willing to lose to have it? And what about your sister? The air shifted, as if the whole yard had leaned left. Vardit finally lifted her eyes, voice tight but controlled, bottom lip trembling against her will. Yeah, Sig. What about the company? All these years, everything we built, the plans, the partnerships, the late nights, the sacrifices. What happened to that? Sigalit didn't answer right away, not because she was unsure, but because she knew the truth would land heavy. I never said I was abandoning it, she replied softly. You can run the business here. You're strong enough, and I can always come back and forth. Dubai isn't Mars. Vardit blinked too fast, breath catching in her throat. So, just like that, you get to go chase love in the clouds, and I stay here holding everything up? Again? Her voice cracked on the last word. She turned her face slightly away and wiped under one eye with her thumb like she was brushing away dust, not tears. Sigalit took a small step toward her, but Vardit stepped back. I'm not trying to hurt you, Sigalit whispered. I need to try it. I need to see it for myself. I need to know if it's real, or if I've been choosing responsibility over happiness my whole life. The yard held the weight of that confession. Janae, who almost always had a solution, pressed her fingers to her lips and stared at nothing. The universal sign of I felt that, and I don't know what to say back. Nobody agreed. Nobody condemned. Everyone understood something, even if they didn't want to. Then Ameka finally spoke, her voice soft but threaded with decades of lived wisdom. "Tell me something, sweetheart." Her tone wasn't judgment, it was a quiet mirror. "When you think about leaving, do you feel peace or do you feel escape?" Sigalit didn't answer immediately. Her eyes shimmered, not crying, but close. "I feel like I'm disappearing here," she whispered, "and nobody notices unless we're arguing or producing or winning." That line pierced every single person present, even the ones pretending it didn't apply to them. Before anyone could respond, one of the great-grands appeared in the doorway, holding a phone nervously. Um, somebody phone ringing." The child carefully walked over and held the phone up. It was Shlomo's. The caller ID flashed in the sun, bold and impossible to ignore. Dr. Frederick. Everyone stared at it as if it were ticking. Shlomo froze. Shania's hand covered her mouth. The phone rang. No one spoke. It stopped, then immediately started ringing again. This time, Shania whispered through trembling lips, "What if it's the results?" No one breathed. Ring, ring. The house felt like it was on the verge of cracking, not from shouting or slamming doors, but from years of unsaid things finally pressing against the walls. Nobody could remember the last time so much truth lived under one roof, and nobody was sure how long the house could hold it. The phone was still ringing. Shlomo stared at it a second too long, swallowed once, hard, then finally pressed answer. Everyone nearby held their breath. "Hello, this is him." He stepped into the small hallway, one hand braced on the wall, as if his body instinctively knew it might need help. Standing Shania followed silently, hands clasped like prayer beads. His conversation dropped to a low murmur, only fragments drifting back. "Yes, doctor. I'm here." "Mm-hmm. I understand. What does that mean exactly? Is there still a chance?" Yes, I'm listening." 2 rooms away, EJ, Josh, Winston, and Ameka continued their quiet conversation, still untangling pride, leadership, and the bruises boys learned to carry alone. Their voices stayed low, not because of secrecy, but because shouting was no longer the language they needed. Meanwhile, the kitchen carried its own storm. Sigalit, Vardit, Malka, Naomi, and Inslee stood inside it. Not in a circle, not in a line, just there, like gravity had chosen them and didn't need their permission. Even the simmering pots seemed to slow, as if the heat itself was trying to eavesdrop. No one spoke at first. Words would have felt like broken glass. Finally, Vardit turned toward her sister, voice tight but controlled, eyes glossy but refusing to spill. "So, you really thinking about stepping away from everything we've built?" Sigalit inhaled slowly before answering without flinching. "I'm not walking away from it, and I'm not dropping it. You can manage things here. You're strong, Var, and I can work from both places if I have to. But I need to see what else my life could be besides duty." Malka leaned back against the fridge, arms crossed, eyebrow raised. "So, this move is hard over business?" Sigalit met her gaze. "No, it's me choosing my life instead of everyone else writing it." The silence returned, but this time it had teeth. Vardit, barely above a whisper, more truth than volume, said, "Funny, 'cause it still feels like I'm losing something." Naomi rubbed her belly slowly, eyes soft with intuition. "Sometimes love is a legacy too. You never know till you see the end of the story." Malka, sharper now, refused to let the moment float away. "Just promise you ain't swapping destiny for something that only feels good today." Inslee, leaning on the doorway, offered unexpected wisdom. "Sometimes you gotta leave home to figure out where home really is." Their voices hung there, strong, flawed, true, none canceling the other out. In the kitchen, nobody was right, nobody was wrong. They were standing at different doors trying to decide which life to walk through. Back in the hallway, Shlomo's voice suddenly cracked louder. "Wait! Say that part again, please!" They all froze. He turned slightly away, hand covering his eyes like he didn't want the house to witness him unraveling. "Yes, I hear you. Thank you, doctor. The call ended, but Shlomo did not return. He stayed facing the wall as if turning around might make the truth more real. Shania placed her arm around his back. What did he say, my love? She whispered. No reply, only breath. At that same moment, Ameka stepped into the kitchen doorway, her silence louder than voices. She scanned each face, not searching for answers, but confirming what she already knew. She set a dish towel down and placed both palms on the counter, steadying more than her body. There is something, she began, her tone low, unshakable, and final. I've been waiting a very long time to say. Every head turned. No one blinked. Even the refrigerator hum felt like it leaned closer. The kitchen didn't feel like a kitchen anymore. It felt like a courtroom, a hospital waiting room, and a church aisle all at once. Ameka stood still for a moment, her palms flat on the counter, her eyes lowered. Not because she was unsure, but because she was finally choosing honesty over protection. When she looked up, her voice didn't shake. Sit down, she said softly. Nobody stands for this. They obeyed without question. First thing, she began slowly, I want all of you to listen, not defend, not argue, and not try to finish my sentences. You will get your turn. Her voice settled like a weight. I know you see me as strong, as the one who always has the answers, the glue, the warrior mother. But the truth is, strength was the only mask I had to survive what I survived. Everyone leaned in, not physically, but emotionally. Ameka exhaled once. When I was a young girl, I lived in a house where love was present, but safety was not. I grew up watching, being monitored and controlled by adults who didn't know how to love without fear. So by the time I became a mother, I only knew how to raise children in survival mode. Her voice darkened, but not with anger, with memory. I didn't teach you softness because softness was dangerous where I came from. The room swallowed that line whole. She continued, and I never told you this, but your father, he wasn't my first love or my only story. He was the man I chose because I felt I needed protection, not because I believed in partnership. Gas tried to escape throats, but nobody dared release them. There was a man before him, she said quietly, someone I truly loved, and he loved me too. But the world we came from didn't want us together. His family refused me. My family feared them, and I lost him. Not because he wanted to go, but because I was told love wasn't enough to build a future. Tears slid down her face without sobbing. So when I found your father, I convinced myself that safety mattered more than connection. I told myself that if I raised you strong with thick skin, none of you would ever feel what I felt. Her eyes shifted to the hallway where Shlomo stood hidden behind the wall of his own grief. That's why I praise strength and punish softness. That's why some of you felt unseen, while others felt burdened to be perfect. She looked directly at Josh. And yes, I compared. Not because I love one more than the other, but because I was desperate to create protectors instead of victims. Josh looked down, eyes filling in slow motion. Then her tone changed, a subtle but seismic shift. And now, my health is changing. The air collapsed. I don't know how serious yet. I'm waiting on results of my own. That is why I watch all this, and I cannot stay quiet anymore. Voices twitched, but no one interrupted. I didn't tell you because I didn't want fear to make you love me harder. I wanted real love, not scared love. She paused, hand over her heart. And the last part, the bloodline secret. Everyone straightened. You come from a line of strong people, yes, but also broken people who hid their truth for decades. Not everything you believe about where we come from is written correctly. Some of you have ancestry and connections you don't even know about, including family you never met on your father's side and mine. The room's silence turned into thunder inside chests. I'm telling you now because whatever happens next, you must know who you are and where you come from so you don't repeat what built me. Tears were everywhere now, some visible, some swallowed. Ameka wiped her face with the back of her hand, not ashamed. I am not asking for forgiveness. I am asking for understanding. I did what I knew, but it's time for all of you to live beyond what built me. Then she whispered, "Truth doesn't break families. Silence does." Her last words floated like a prophecy, and this family must not live in silence anymore. When Shlomo finally stepped back into the open, his face didn't carry tragedy, but it didn't carry answers either. It was the kind of expression that made everyone feel something terrible could be true, but maybe, just maybe, there was still room for a different ending. He stood there a moment too long, eyes unfocused, breathing unevenly, as if part of him was still trapped in the hallway trying to decide which words were safe to let out. No one rushed him. No one dared. "I talked to the doctor," he finally said, his voice low but steady enough to follow. The room adjusted, shoulders straightened, arms folded, breaths paused. "They found a mistake," he continued. "My test results were mixed up with someone else, so they can't confirm anything until I retest." Reaction didn't explode. It rippled. A soft gasp, a whispered prayer, a hand over a mouth. Someone is blinking too slowly. Hope didn't replace fear. It sat beside it. Before anyone could speak, Shania stepped forward, her tone changing the temperature in the room. "There's something else," she said gently. Everyone turned, but not all the way, still watching Shlomo with the corner of their eyes in case his heart needed catching. She placed a hand on her stomach, not dramatic, just instinctive. "I realized I was 2 weeks late," she said quietly. "So today, while everybody was here, I slipped out to the store and bought a test." Time paused. Emotion didn't. Her breath shook, but her words didn't. "It came back positive. I'm pregnant." The silence wasn't empty. It was holy. Shock didn't shout. It whispered, trembled, landed in the chest before it reached the mind. Someone gasped. Someone covered their face. Someone froze mid-blink. Tears arrived on their own schedule. Shlomo stepped toward her as if pulled by something stronger than fear. His hands cupped her face, forehead pressed to hers, breath mixing with breath like prayer, without words. His tears didn't ask permission. They just came. No one interrupted. Not this moment. And then, before emotions settled into one meaning, Ameka cleared her throat softly. "I have news too." They turned once more, hearts already stretched, but somehow still open. She lifted her chin slightly. "My results came back clean," she said. "I'm fine. No sickness, no disease, no shadow waiting." Her smile wasn't wide, it was deep, like a quiet sunrise. "I rested, I cleansed, I prayed, and I listened to my body, and my body answered me back." Someone whispered, "Thank you, God." Someone else echoed, yes." It wasn't loud joy. It was relief joy, the kind that softens knees and straightens souls. For the first time that weekend, nobody was holding their breath. No competition, no defenses, no walls, just family exhaling in the same direction. A voice, nobody knows who, whispered into the warm, heavy air. "Some blessings don't come easy, but they come right on time." No one agreed. No one disagreed. They just felt it. Morning arrived without hurry. No pots banging, no children running, no loud family debates, just the gentle sounds of people thinking. It was Sunday, departure day. Not sad, but not regular either. The kitchen smelled like toast someone forgot about, leftover Johnny cake, and that one pot nobody washed yet because it's soaking. Inslee was at the fridge, drinking juice straight from the carton like he had no home training. Mookie snatched the carton from him, took a sip, and whispered, "Bro, you know we got eyes in this house." Inslee shrugged. "They didn't see me. They saw thirst." They fist-bumped like that made it logical. Across the room, Sigalit and Vardit sat quietly. Not mad, not distant, just processing. Malka sat on the counter, eating leftover sweet potato cake for breakfast. Naomi waddled in and stared at her. "Cake? At 9 a.m.? Malka shrugged. "It got sweet potato. That's vegetable-based wellness." Naomi laughed so hard she had to hold her belly. The room finally felt human again. That's when Janae joined them. "You don't have to pretend y'all fine," she said. "This ain't church. Nobody collecting perfection. Vardit inhaled slowly before speaking. I'm not mad she found love. I'm mad she found permission. Sigalit looked down at her hands. It's not that I don't care about what we built. I just need to know who I am without the title. Malka paused mid-chew. You still you, Sig, just with different scenery. Everybody ain't meant to retire in the same zip code. Naomi added, love doesn't mean you're weak. Love means you dare to try again. For a second, it became too quiet again. So Inslee, by instinct, rescued the moment. So if you're moving to Dubai, I'm visiting. I don't need a full bedroom. Just a room with Wi-Fi and good lighting. I got content to shoot. Everyone laughed. Real laughter, not forced. Meanwhile, outside on the porch, EJ and Josh sat side by side, still quiet but no longer tense. The silence wasn't war anymore. It was a truce. Finally, EJ spoke. I wasn't trying to be your father. I was trying to fill a gap that scared me. Josh rubbed his chin. Yeah, well, I wasn't trying to make you feel useless. I just wanted to be seen without competing for a spot that should have been mine. Before tears could form, Mookie opened the door and stuck his head out. Y'all good? Because if this turns into a therapy circle, I'm charging a copay, and I only accept Zelle. They all laughed. Even Winston. He leaned on the doorframe and said, no family is perfect, but families that talk heal faster than families that remember quiet. Back inside, people start packing. Not rushing, just gently folding, checking rooms, making sure nothing was forgotten. That's when Naomi said softly, it's crazy. We cried, we yelled, we ate like we were training for a marathon, but now nobody is ready to leave. Malka nodded. Yeah. I thought after yesterday somebody would have booked a hotel. Even Ameka smiled behind her mug. But right as someone reached for a car key, a voice from the hallway called out, hold up. We're not leaving yet. We still need one more moment. No one asked what kind everyone knew. Nobody planned a final moment. It just happened. The same way rain decides when it wants to fall. They drifted back to the long wooden table, moving without instructions, like something inside them already knew they weren't allowed to leave with unspoken things still in the air. There was no decorated spread this time, just mismatched mugs, half-eaten desserts, foil paper everywhere, and that one pan nobody washed yet because it's still soaking. Winston stood first, not to preach, but to steady the energy. You see this? He said, looking around. This is what matters. Not who is right, not who is stronger than who, not who achieves the most. This way when we can sit close after everything happened. A soft wave of agreement traveled the room. Inslee, feet kicked up like he paid rent, mumbled, if anybody cries again, I'm charging for emotional support services. Mookie side-eyed him. Boy, you barely graduated from the Keep Your Mouth Shut Academy. Hush and let the moment breathe. Laughter broke just enough to make the air feel warm again. Then Ameka spoke, not loud, but with the kind of voice nobody interrupts. Life not waiting till it's perfect, she said. If you love somebody, you love them now, not after they change into your version. She looked at each face slowly, intentionally, like she was memorizing it. We all came here with something heavy, and we are leaving with something lighter. That is family, not the pretty pictures you post, the parts you survive together. Everyone absorbed that the way Caribbean families do, quietly but deeply. EJ leaned back in his chair. So moving forward, can we argue after dessert? I ain't wasting no more joy calories. Josh nodded. And nobody is doing dramatic exits anymore. Gravel is too loud, and it does ruin the mood. More laughter, hands found hands, arms linked, heads rested on shoulders they hadn't leaned on in years. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, and that was better than perfect. When it was finally time to start packing, the house shifted into its usual, don't forget anything and check under the bed routine. Leftover containers were debated like stock investments. This one mine. No, I hid that from last night. It's mine. All of you are greedy, man. Out by the cars, Winston called out, his tone half serious, half smile. All of you better come Christmas. No excuses. No we're busy speech, just come. Someone replied, we're coming, and don't water down the coquito. Another added, and please hide the Johnny Walker, 'cause some people drink like rent do. Doors closed more slowly than usual. Nobody wanted to be the first one completely inside their car. As engines turned on, Ameka stepped forward and looked up at the quiet, warm sky. Thanksgiving done, she whispered, but something coming. At that very moment, every phone chimed at the same time. A new message appeared in the family group chat. No name, just initials, a N and a VI flag emoji. The message read, Christmas won't be like last time. Come ready, truth does travel. AN. Silence. Mookie frown. We know anybody with those initials still alive? Janae's voice lowered. That is, Auntie Nadine's initials. No one laughed. No one moved. A soft breeze swept across the yard. Not cold, but with meaning. Then Inslee whispered, So, who exactly is sending messages? Nobody answered. Nobody could. All they knew was that Christmas had become mandatory.